I remember the day I met Daniel like it was yesterday. I was sitting in a small cafe with my best friend, sipping on a cold drink, when he walked in. Tall, confident, and with the kind of smile that could light up a whole room. My heart skipped a beat when our eyes met. "Who's that?" I whispered to my friend, my cheeks already turning pink. "Looks like your future," she teased, nudging me. Little did I know, she wasn't far from the truth. Daniel approached us, introduced himself, and we started talking. Within weeks, we were inseparable. Daniel was everything I thought I wanted in a man. He was charming, funny, and knew how to make me feel like the most special person in the world. For 5 years, we built a life together. We had lazy Sunday mornings, date nights at our favorite spots, and even planned our future. Or at least, I thought we did. It all started so subtly that, at first, I didn't even notice. Daniel began cancelling plans at the last minute: dinner dates, movie nights, even simple walks in the park. At first, he always had a good excuse. "Sorry, babe, work ran late," he'd say, his voice tired over the phone. Or, "I'm just not feeling too well tonight. Let's do it another time." I wanted to believe him. After all, we'd been together for years, and he had never given me a reason to doubt him. But the excuses became more frequent, and the plans we used to make with so much excitement slowly stopped altogether. When we were together, things felt different. Daniel seemed distracted, like his mind was 1,000 miles away even when he was sitting right next to me. "Are you okay, babe?" I asked him one night as we lay in bed. It was supposed to be one of those cozy nights, the kind where we'd talk about everything and nothing until we fell asleep. But he had been scrolling on his phone for over an hour, barely saying a word to me. "Yeah, just work stuff," he mumbled, not even looking up as he spoke. He leaned over to kiss my forehead, but it felt mechanical, like he was going through the motions. It wasn't the warm, lingering kiss I used to get, the kind that made me feel like the luckiest woman in the world. The intimacy between us began to fade like a candle burning out. His once playful touches, the spontaneous hugs, and the little gestures that used to make my heart flutter, like tucking a strand of my hair behind my ear or holding my hand just because, became rare. I noticed the way he avoided eye contact during our conversations, his eyes darting elsewhere, as if he was searching for an escape. "Daniel," I said one evening as we sat on the couch, the TV playing in the background. "Is there something you want to talk about?" He glanced at me briefly, then back at the screen. "No, why?" "Because you're not yourself," I replied, my voice soft but firm. "You don't laugh like you used to. You don't even look at me the same way." He shrugged, giving me a tired smile. "You're overthinking. It's just stress. You know how it is." But I didn't know how it was. Not anymore. Conversations that used to flow effortlessly now felt forced. I found myself struggling to fill the awkward silences between us. The man who once shared his dreams and fears with me was now a stranger in the same room. I told myself it was just a phase, that all relationships go through ups and downs. Maybe he really was just stressed from work. Maybe I was being paranoid. But deep down, in the part of me I didn't want to face, I knew something was wrong. It wasn't just the cancelled plans or the distracted behavior, it was the emptiness. The once vibrant connection we shared felt like a distant memory, replaced by a hollow, aching void. Something had shifted between us, and no matter how much I tried to ignore it, the feeling wouldn't go away. One evening, Daniel called me and said he wanted to meet at the park, the one where we had shared so many memories. My heart leapt with excitement. I had been waiting for this moment. Maybe he had planned something special, something that would bring us closer again. A proposal even. The idea lit a spark of hope in me. I spent extra time getting ready, wearing the dress he always said was his favorite. I even touched up my makeup, telling myself it was silly to feel nervous after 5 years together. But deep down, I wanted to feel special for him, just like in the beginning. When I arrived at the park, I spotted him sitting on our favorite bench under the big oak tree. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow across the sky. It should have been the perfect scene for something romantic, but the moment I saw his face, I knew something was wrong. He looked tense. His hands were clasped together, and he kept glancing at the ground. My heart sank a little, but I brushed it off, trying to stay positive. "Hey," I greeted him with a smile, sitting down beside him. "Hey," he said, his voice soft, almost hesitant. We sat in silence for a few moments, the sounds of birds chirping and children playing filling the air. I waited for him to speak, expecting him to pull out a ring or at least say something sweet. Instead, he turned to me, his expression serious. "Listen," he began, his voice trembling slightly. My stomach tightened. "What is it?" I asked, my smile fading. "I don't think this is working anymore," he said, the words coming out in a rush. For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. "What's not working?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked down at his hands, avoiding my gaze. "Us," he said bluntly. "I think we've grown apart." Grown apart? The words hit me like a slap in the face. My mind started spinning, searching for answers. This was Daniel, the man I had spent 5 years of my life with, the man I thought I would marry. How could we have grown apart without me realizing it? "But, we're happy," I said, my voice trembling. "Aren't we?" He let out a heavy sigh, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe I'm not happy. I think I need space to figure things out." Space. That word felt like a dagger to my heart. After everything we had been through together, he wanted space. I stared at him, my chest tightening as tears threatened to spill. "Is there someone else?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. He hesitated a moment too long. "No, of course not," he said, but his tone was unconvincing. That hesitation was all I needed to know. He didn't have to say it. I felt it in my gut, the truth I had been trying to ignore for weeks. I turned away, blinking rapidly to stop the tears from falling. I refused to let him see me cry, refused to let him know how deeply he was breaking me. But inside, I felt shattered, like the ground beneath me had crumbled, leaving me with nothing to hold on to. How could he do this to me? After 5 years of love, laughter, and dreams of a future together, he was throwing it all away. And for what? Space. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. The days after our breakup were a painful blur. I moved through them like a ghost, my body going through the motions while my heart felt like it had been ripped out. Nights were the hardest. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our relationship in my head. I dissected every argument, every conversation, every tiny detail, wondering where I went wrong. Was it me? I whispered into the silence of my room. Did I say something? Do something? What could I have done differently? The questions were relentless, and the answers never came. I cried myself to sleep every night, clutching the pillow that still faintly smelled of him. Even my dreams weren't safe, they were filled with memories of us, happier times when I thought we were invincible. Then came the truth, and it shattered me all over again. It was a mutual friend who told me, her voice hesitant as if she wasn't sure I could handle it. "I didn't want to tell you," she said, "but I think you deserve to know. Daniel's been seeing someone else." The words hung in the air, sharp and cruel. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. "What?" I managed to choke out. "Her name's Mia," she said gently, as if that would soften the blow. "She's younger, prettier. He's been talking about how she's different." Different. That word echoed in my head like a cruel joke. So, that's what he left me for? After 5 years of love, loyalty, and building a life together, I wasn't enough for him because he wanted different. Anger bubbled up inside me, hot and fierce, overpowering the heartbreak that had consumed me. He didn't just leave me, he betrayed me. He lied to my face, claiming he needed space while he was already filling it with someone else. Images of Mia started forming in my mind, a younger, prettier version of everything I wasn't. Maybe she had the kind of laugh that made heads turn or the kind of charm that made people flock to her. Maybe she didn't nag him to pick up his socks or forget to text back sometimes. Maybe she was perfect, but no, I thought, shaking my head. She wasn't perfect. She was just new. And he was chasing the thrill of something new, something shiny, without a care for the wreckage he left behind. I felt a wave of shame mixed with anger. How could he do this to me? How could he so easily toss aside everything we'd built for a girl who hadn't even been in his life long enough to know his quirks, the way he liked his coffee, or how he always had to sleep with the TV on? The betrayal cut deep, but with it came a fire I hadn't felt in weeks. He didn't just break my heart, he underestimated me. And that, I decided, was his biggest mistake. One day, as I sat on my bed surrounded by tissues and empty ice cream tubs, something clicked. Why am I sitting here crying over a man who clearly doesn't deserve me? I asked myself. That's when the idea hit me. If Daniel thought he could walk away from our 5 years together without consequences, he had another thing coming. I wasn't going to beg or plead for him to come back. No, I was going to teach him a lesson he'd never forget. First, I knew I couldn't let the pain define me. If Daniel thought he could break me and leave me in pieces, he had another thing coming. I decided to rebuild myself, not for him, not for anyone else, but for me. The first step was getting my life back on track. I signed up for a gym membership and committed to showing up, even on days when all I wanted to do was curl up in bed. At first, it was tough. Every treadmill run felt like I was running away from the heartbreak, and every weight I lifted felt like a metaphor for the emotional baggage I was carrying. But slowly, something shifted. With each workout, I felt stronger, not just physically, but mentally. I wasn't just working on my body, I was working on my confidence. Next came a fresh start in the form of a new look. I booked an appointment at the salon, something I hadn't done in ages. Give me something bold, I told the stylist. When she turned the chair around, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. The sleek haircut framed my face perfectly, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled at my reflection. I updated my wardrobe, too. Gone were the sweatpants and oversized hoodies I'd been hiding in. I bought clothes that made me feel fierce, outfits that said, "Look at me, I'm unstoppable." But it wasn't just about appearances. I threw myself into my career, taking on projects I had been too afraid to tackle before. I signed up for workshops, networked with new people, and worked late into the nights, not because I had to, but because I wanted to remind myself of my own potential. Every little achievement felt like a step closer to reclaiming my power. And then there was social media. Oh, social media. I started posting pictures, not just selfies, but moments that showed I was living my best life. A sunrise hike with friends, a fancy dinner at a new restaurant, my progress at the gym. I wanted to prove to myself and maybe to Daniel too, that I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. It didn't take long for Daniel to notice. He started liking my pictures, the little red heart popping up beneath every post. At first, I rolled my eyes. Of course, he'd notice now. Then came the late-night texts. "You look amazing," he wrote one night, completely out of the blue. "I miss you," came another message a few days later. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. A part of me wanted to respond, to call him out for his audacity. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt and betrayed, wanted to ignore him completely. In the end, I settled on something better: patience. If Daniel thought a few texts and likes could erase the damage he'd done, he was sorely mistaken. He had underestimated me once, but I wasn't about to make it that easy for him. Not now. Not ever. One afternoon, as I was lounging on my couch, lost in the pages of a book, there was a knock at my door. It was unexpected, and when I opened it, there he was, Daniel. The sight of him standing there, looking disheveled and conflicted, caught me completely off guard. "I've made a mistake," he began, his voice heavy with regret. His eyes, which once sparkled with confidence, now looked burdened and weary. "Leaving you was the worst decision of my life." I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe, trying to mask the storm of emotions swirling inside me. "Oh, really?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "And let me guess, things with Mia didn't work out?" He looked down, unable to meet my gaze. His silence said it all. "She's not you," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, I wanted to laugh at the irony, laugh at how the tables had turned. But I held it together, keeping my face neutral. "Daniel," I began, my tone steady but firm. "Do you remember what you said to me that day in the park? You told me we'd grown apart. That you needed space. That you weren't happy. He nodded, shame evident in his posture. I was wrong, he confessed. I thought I was looking for something better, but I didn't realize I already had the best. His words hung in the air, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of the man I had fallen in love with. Despite everything, despite the betrayal, a part of me still cared. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and gestured for him to come in. He walked in slowly, glancing around the space that had once been his second home. We talked for hours about the past, the mistakes, the pain we had both endured. He apologized over and over, his voice cracking with emotion. I don't know what came over me that evening. Maybe it was the vulnerability in his eyes or the way he spoke with such raw honesty. Maybe it was the remnants of love that still lingered in my heart. Whatever it was, we found ourselves reconnecting in a way I hadn't anticipated. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we were in my room, the door quietly closing behind us. The air between us was thick with emotions: anger, longing, love, and something unspoken that neither of us could deny. It felt surreal to have him there again, so close, yet still carrying the weight of all that had happened between us. As he reached out and gently touched my face, I felt my defenses begin to crumble. His eyes searched mine, silently asking for forgiveness, for a chance to prove he was still the man I had fallen in love with. And in that moment, I let go of the walls I had so carefully built. We moved together like we had so many times before, but this time, it was different. It wasn't about habit or routine, it was about rediscovering each other. The passion we shared felt raw, unfiltered, and real, like we were bearing not just our bodies but also our souls. In those moments, the heartbreak, the anger, and the betrayal faded into the background. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt wanted, cherished, and loved. It was as though we were weaving ourselves back together, stitch by stitch, healing the wounds that had torn us apart. That night, something shifted between us. It wasn't just about physical closeness, it was as if all the pain, the arguments, and the heartbreak had dissolved, leaving behind only the raw essence of who we were together. As Daniel held me, there was a tenderness in his touch that I hadn't felt in years. He kissed me like he was trying to apologize for every tear I'd shed, every lonely night I'd spent without him. The world outside seemed to fade away as we reconnected, not out of habit or some fleeting desire, but out of something deeper. It felt like we were peeling back the layers of our love, rediscovering the bond that had once been unshakable. He whispered things to me that made my heart ache and heal at the same time, words I hadn't realized I'd been longing to hear. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt safe. I felt seen. We stayed up late, talking in between moments of passion, laughing at old memories, and sharing our hopes for the future. He told me he was sorry for everything, for leaving, for hurting me, for choosing someone else. And though part of me wanted to remain guarded, to keep my walls up, his sincerity made it hard not to soften. When I finally fell asleep in his arms, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. For that one night, it felt like we had turned back time, like we were the couple who had fallen in love all those years ago. But life has a way of surprising you, sometimes in ways you're completely unprepared for. A few weeks later, I started feeling strange. I was constantly tired, my emotions were all over the place, and certain smells made me nauseous. At first, I chalked it up to stress and the emotional rollercoaster of reconnecting with Daniel. But when I realized I was late, really late, I knew I had to face the possibility I hadn't dared to consider. I bought a pregnancy test, my hands trembling as I placed it on the counter. The minutes it took to process felt like hours, my heart pounding in my chest. When the results finally appeared, I stared at the 2 pink lines in disbelief. Pregnant. The word felt heavy, yet somehow light at the same time. A whirlwind of emotions swept through me: fear of the unknown, excitement for what could be, and uncertainty about how this would change everything. I sat on the bathroom floor, clutching the test, tears streaming down my face. I wasn't just thinking about myself anymore. A tiny life was growing inside me, a life that would depend on me, that would need me to be strong and ready for whatever came next. As overwhelming as it was, a strange sense of purpose began to settle in my heart. This wasn't just about me and Daniel anymore. This was about something bigger, a new chapter, a new beginning. The woman who had cried herself to sleep after Daniel left was gone. I was stepping into a new role, one I hadn't expected but was determined to embrace with everything I had. Little did I know, this was only the start of a journey that would test me in ways I'd never imagined and reveal just how strong I could truly be.